I actually think 5G is today at an inflection point in the amount of networks being deployed out. I think Ericsson alone is, more than 150 networks in more than 65 countries. So I think the inflection point is there. As I said, you see amount of networks. The second point is also that, it's not only the amount of networks being deployed, but I think they're also getting real. They're picking up traffic, they're picking up devices, and I think there is also a need for then adding additional services. And when there is a need for adding additional services, I think there also is a need for modernizing the OSS and the BSS systems. And clearly, what we are seeing is obviously one of the parts is the introduction of network slicing, to actually making it more similar and more easy to actually create the more advanced services that 5G will actually enable, more advanced connectivity services, and also the easiness and the simplicity to actually define and deploy this type of services. I think the other area we see is around converged charging and billing. There will be a need for more SLA-based services. There will be a need for more instant activation of new services. And of course, the other part that I see is artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually optimize the services, optimize the network. I think that is an area where obviously the journey has started, but I think there is much more that can be done. And I think in the end, what I usually see about 5G is that it's, compared to the other standards, it's a use case driven approach. And that means that whoever can be the quickest one in introducing, deploying, and try out new offers, I think we'll have a very competitive advantage. Sometimes it can take months to create and deploy new offers, and I think in the future you need to have a system and capabilities that you can do that in hours or days, so to say. So I think the simplicity and the speed and the agility to create new offers will be key. So since 5G is really about trying out new use cases, trying out new advanced services. The capability to have a differentiated service experience, I think, is what will make you competitive. And I think the differentiated service experience is obviously also something that you always need to make sure that you are maintaining and entertaining. It's not going to stay there from start all the time. You need to make sure that you're constantly working with the service experience level. And that's come back to the network slicing perspective. For me, network slicing is the tool. Today, it's very cumbersome if you want to deploy and activate and monetize on a quite advanced connectivity services. With the introduction of service orchestration, network slicing will be made easy. It's easy to define a new service, it's easy to deploy it, and it's easy to kind of monetize and try it out. And clearly, like the introduction of network slicing tooling, etc., and of course, it's a step change in the OSS and in the BSS stack. Then coming back to the simplicity, I think historically now our consumer stacks, especially for instance if you are in prepaid, has been extremely simplified and user-friendly. I mean, you have an app on your mobile phone, you expect an instant activation of your services. When you go into a shop, you don't want to wait for 15 minutes before your service gets activated. This type of experience, I think people are getting used to it. And I think they would also expect this level of experience also coming from the more advanced and the more B2B and enterprise services. It needs to be app-driven, it needs to be instantly activated, it needs to be self-serviced. I think that everything that we have been used on the consumer, I think will also be needed on the enterprise side. Obviously, when you look at all the 5G deployments and where the operators are, I think we see them on the maturity curve being on different places. I think some of them are very well advanced, trying out slicing even on commercial basis. Some of them are in the early phases, and I think, a good example has been the Vodafone UK. When they looked about the difference between how people or gamers felt about the experience, service experience, whether they were on a non-optimized or fully optimized network, they could see on a fully optimized network that 88% of the cloud gamers gave 8 out of 10 on the experience, which is a good number. I think They also measured when they were on a non-optimized environment, and then the same numbers for 13% on giving them an 8 out of 10. So clearly the connection between an optimized network and the experience and the user experience, there is a very, very solid connection. I think what Team Forum does is of course extremely good with the open APIs and the ODA. Because for me, the simplicity to integrate different vendors, different systems will drive speed and innovation. And I think Ericsson, happy that we have been on the Open API for quite some time, but we also now, this Team Forum or this TTV event, we also got awarded Ready for ODA on our side. But for me, it's really to create speed and innovation that you can actually simplify the integration between different vendors and different systems. I think the other part is also about standards needs to hang together. You can't have standards on the OSS BSS side that is not hanging together with the networking side. And I think here the cooperation, for instance, we have done together with Camara and Team Forum to create the kind of enterprise usable APIs and how they are complemented in a very good with the Team Forum APIs. I think there's been a catalyst here on this space that I think has been really good and showing the need. But clearly, standards needs to be hanging together end to end. And I think during the last year, I think there's been a lot of good work to making sure that this is happening. I think the other part is also, I mean, standards, it's not only about, just having standards will not make it work in the operator. So there is also the full operational transformation as well that is in some way needs to be done simultaneous as introducing open standards. And I think here, for instance, we have been working a lot with like Telia that have been very focused on open standards, but also making sure that there is an operational setup that supports that way of working. And I think the figures they were showing is amazing in terms of 80% reusability of business processes and offers across opcos. So obviously using open standards, but also making sure you do the operational transformation, I think it pays off and numbers shows it.